All right. Good evening and welcome to the meeting for the budget proposal. So anyways, we have, is Maura remote?
There she is.
Sorry,
Whoa. Okay, there's
I'm
Maura.
here.
Okay, Maura is remote. And we have everybody but Annie Collier, who informed me that she was going to be absent. And then Tom Ambrose is also remote. Hello, Tom. All right, so let's salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
The United States of America.
To stand
Nation.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, so there are currently no minutes for the January 6th meeting. Off this evening. So we'll pick up with those on the 20th. Which leaves us with the only remaining thing to cover, and that would be the budget presentation. And I'll be doing that with some assistance from Matt Angel on one of the pages. And then when I'm done, he will follow up with covering the warrants. All right. So this evening, we're going to be discussing the fiscal budget for the fiscal year, the proposal, for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023. Please save all your questions till the end and direct them to me, and I'll, if I can't answer them, I will send them to you. That didn't do it, did it? All right, sorry, got to go into from the beginning. All right, my bad on that. Okay, so the budget process. So this is something that happens year over year. And hey, Matt, how do we get it out from showing the next slide to the right? Oh, over here on the computer. No, it's okay. It's showing the next slide.
Yes, because that's going to let you know what's coming up.
I'm sorry.
All right, you can't get rid of that? Can't get rid of that?
No.
No, all right, good enough. Okay. So the budget process, the school board sets the goals and priorities. The administration recommends the budget to the school board. The school board and the budget committee ask questions. And so this is done every year. And as soon as the administration provides the recommended budget, it becomes public knowledge and anyone can review it and submit questions to a school board member or a budget committee member, or even the superintendent. Your questions are then allocated with all the other questions submitted by the school board and the budget committee and answered later on in a later meeting, specifically for discussing those questions. So that falls after the detailed answers from the administration. Then the school board recommends the budget to the budget committee. The budget committee deliberates and recommends a budget. Whether or not it meets, only basically if it meets the needs for higher education, impact on, we consider the impact on the taxpayers, and we also have to make considerations for the upcoming staff contracts. So here we have a core beliefs of the foundation for improving the quality of education. This is basically a mission statement, and the aligned curriculum is just a clearly defined explanation of what the students will need to know and to be able to go from each course to another course and then go from one year to the next year. Academic intervention is a focused support for students who do not meet the expectations of the curriculum. So that would come into effect if they were not passing in the aligned curriculum area. Implementing the best practices for teaching is basically the best practices for every day in the classroom. And the culture for the children, that is everyone in the school district focuses on supporting students' academic success through building positive relationships with others. To see more on that information, the Portrait of a Graduate document would give you an insight on that, and that can be procured from the superintendent's office. All right, Matt.
Okay, do you want to
Slide
do
four.
why don't you do the operating budget first?
All right, so the operating budget proposal, the current budget for 2021 to 2022 is $36,011,926. The proposed budget is $37,179,463. That is an increase of $1,167,537, which equates to a 3.24% increase.
Okay, so if the taxpayers do not vote the current budget or proposed budget, then the default budget will kick in. The default budget is $37,232,635. It's an increase to the current budget of $1,220,709, which is a 3.39% increase. The proposed operating budget is $53,172 less than the default budget. Okay, Jim.
All right, so just to repeat that again, the proposed budget is lower than the operating, the default budget. So this is a summary of the major changes in the recommended operating budget. Bargain agreements have been approved during the previous election in 2021, and that's of the amount just over 500,000. And then you see an increase in health insurance, and that happens for several reasons. District employee families are growing, more employees are added, or the insurance company just increases the amount because they can. You see that there are three groups or three rows where there was a decrease, and that was the retirement program, the Seacoast School of Technology, that was a drop in tuition, and then the school supplies for the whole district, actually, not just for the schools, but offices as well, had a reduction of just over $64,000. So that's kind of a pretty significant savings right there. If you just turn around and think of office supplies, that's actually very good. Okay. So the next slide here is the unexpended funds return to the taxpayers. So you'll see that there's 5 years listed here. And the years 2019 to 2020, 2020 to 2021, they're up over $2 million of funds being returned. And the majority of that return is due to COVID. And it ranges everywhere from the amount of office supplies used and all the way up to people utilizing their health insurance and going to the doctors and all that other kind of stuff. The whole COVID situation, just kept people from doing what they were doing and saved the school district money. But 21 to 22, that still needs to be determined. All right, so here we have 3 items that are not in the operating budget. The running track needs to be repaired. At this time, it's an estimated to be a $76,000 repair. If not, the substructure will deteriorate and the cost of repair will increase drastically. Our wireless system upgrades are essential to the operation of the school. The IT department has been struggling to keep the antiquated technical equipment running. Soon, they will not be able to find compatible components and the equipment will become unusable and our district will have an expensive communication issue to fix. And the same for the wireless system in the auditorium. The equipment is also antiquated as far as technology goes. We have a beautiful auditorium which operates on equipment from around 2012 and before. In the past, the auditorium was rented out for presentations, creating revenue for the district. Well, it's difficult to rent it out when the technology of today is not compatible with the existing equipment. Now we're into the reserve accounts. As of the date stated, the 10/31/2021, these accounts contain the funds shown. There may be a difference in them at this time, but it is not available yet. So the special education fund is services to students who could be, an example would be a service to a student who has moved into the district. Capital improvement fund, that's used for making improvements and repairs to the facility that are not otherwise budgeted, such as replacing a roof. And then the unanticipated education expenses, that would be hiring a new teacher for an unexpected student growth, meaning class size, not their physical ability to grow. Facilities use. This is revenue from facility rental, and it is segregated in this fund and can be used for facility improvements and repairs and for technology purchases. We recently purchased the new accounting system using these funds. The contingency fund, this amount is the 2.5% of net assets. Assessments. Sorry. The net assessments represents tax revenue received from taxpayers, not including the state share or the state's share of property taxes. We can only use these funds for an emergency. The purpose has to be approved by the school board, the budget committee, the New Hampshire Department of Education, and New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration prior to spending these funds. Annually, the school board has to authorize the funds being retained. Otherwise, they are returned to the taxpayers through a reduced tax rate. Okay. Future considerations. First is a $2.3 million annual high school bond that's going to be paid off in 2024. It is not reflected in the budget until the fiscal year 2025-2026. Last year, we introduced the slide for these items, just to keep them in the forefront of people when they begin to make decisions. We've also got an aging infrastructure maintenance issue, and it's the previous slide titled "Important Needs," not an operating budget. Lists 3 things, and 2 of them which are part of our infrastructure. The third, the track, is part of the athletic program, which is also vital to our students' well-being. And so number 3, Fremont's contract ends in 2026, and possible 250 students leaving, and maybe 1.5 million annually lost. So Sanborn needs to balance improving student outcomes and watch costs to attract and retain students and families. Is our opinion, Tom?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify. Fremont sends us about 180 students right now. So 250 is, I just wanted to, for the record, to make sure everyone knows that they send about 180 students, not 250.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So the budget committee feels that this budget proposal accomplishes both for our district. All right, so for the fiscal year 22 to 23, the estimated revenues are listed here on the left-hand side. There's 3 rows. The estimated local revenues, 6.6 million. Estimated adequacy aid is 3.3, and then the estimated state tax and local property revenues is 27.2 mil. So the estimated local revenues can be found in the table on the right-hand side. And that's, you can see that it's made up of several different areas, and ranging from 5,000 all the way up to $545,000. And here we go with the $300,000 house impact comparison. Under the proposed budget, Kingston will see an increase. Oh, actually, sorry. The proposed budget is $37,179,463. The default budget is $37,232,635. So under the proposed budget, Kingston will see an increase of $240. Nope, sorry, that's not correct. $585, and Newton will see an increase of $633. For those, there was an error in one of them before that was corrected earlier today. And then under the default budget, Kingston will see an increase of $594, and Newton will see an increase of $645. So that's that for the $300,000 house. So our proposed operating budget provides efficient use of funds for the needs of all students. It fully funds the intervention program. It is recommended by the budget committee, 8 in favor, and the school board was 6 in favor, 1 against it. And the school administration also stands behind it. One other thing that we need to keep in mind is that there's new support staff coming up in March, new support staff contract coming up in March. And February 9th, the deliberative session, the voters go to the polls and vote away. I mean, sorry, it's not it. The deliberative session where the voters are present, set the budget and other warrant articles. And then in March 8th, we go to the polls and vote for the proposed budget and warrant articles and for the school board and budget committee representatives. And thank you very much for your time.
All right. Before we jump into a public hearing, I need to read all the warrant articles that are going to go before the taxpayers. And these are only the warrant articles that have a money item to them. Anything that is non-monetary is not presented here. Okay, so the first one is Article 3, which is the operating budget. And it states, shall the Sanborn Regional School District raise and appropriate an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately. The amount set forth in the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote at the first session for the purpose of, set forth therein, totaling $37,139,463, and then the numbers listed there. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $37,232,635, and the numbers listed there. The same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Sanborn Regional School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13 X and XVI to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. This warrant article does not include appropriations in any other warrant article. Okay.
Oh,
you know what?
sorry. You go up there, but
I can go up there.
I got it.
Okay.
Four.
Okay, the next one is Article 4. This is the support staff collective bargaining agreement. Shall the Sanborn Regional School District approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement for support staff reached between the school board and the Sanborn Regional Education Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at current staffing levels over the amount paid for the prior fiscal year. For the first year, which is 22-23, is $159,890. The second year, which is 23-24, is $96,809. The third year, which is 24-25, for $94,544. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $159,890, and the numbers listed there, for the 22-23 fiscal year, and some representing the additional costs attributed to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those of the appropriation at the current staffing levels. Okay, next slide. Okay, Article 6, unanticipated utility costs expendable trust fund. Shall the Sanborn Regional School District vote to establish an unanticipated utility cost expendable trust fund under RSA 198:20-C for the purpose of funding unanticipated utility costs and to raise and appropriate up to $75,000, and then the numbers listed, to be placed in the fund. Such sum to come from June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1, with no additional amounts to be raised from taxation, i.e. the funds will not lapse to the general fund to offset taxes. And further, to name the school board as agents to expend from this fund. Next slide, please. Article 7, Device Protection Plan Revolving Fund. Shall the Sanborn Regional School District vote to establish a student device revolving fund in accordance with RSA 94:3C for the purpose of supporting, maintaining, and replacing student electronic devices. The money received from Technology Protection Plan dues shall be deposited into the fund and shall be allowed to accumulate from year to year and shall not be considered part of the district's general fund balance. Withdrawal and disbursement of said fund shall be on a monthly basis for the purpose for which the fund was created, and a majority vote is required. Okay, Article 8, Capital Reserve Fund, unanticipated educational expenses. Shall the Sanborn Regional School District vote to raise and appropriate up to $50,000, and the numbers listed here, to be placed in the Capital Reserve Fund, unanticipated educational expenses established at the 2019 annual meeting. This sum to come from June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1 instead of returning the money to the community to offset taxes. No amount to be raised from taxation.
Aye.
Okay, and finally, Article 9, Capital Reserve Fund, Capital Improvement and Maintenance. Shall the Sanborn Regional School District vote to raise and appropriate up to $50,000, and the numbers listed again, to be placed in the Capital Improvement and Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This sum to come from June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1 instead of returning the money to the community to offset taxes. No amount to be raised from taxation. That concludes my portion of the presentation. Thank you.
Can I just say one quick thing? I did want to note that the annual revenue that comes in from Fremont is close to $4 to $4.2 million, not 1.5. I don't know if that was an error, or I just wanted to make sure that Mr. Angel could speak to that if anyone had a question.
I think the 1.5 million would be the difference between the revenues and expenses related.
Thank you for clarifying that, Matt.
So you were saying that?
It's time for the public hearing. You have to call the public hearing.
Oh, all right. So now it's time for the public hearing. And does anybody in the public want to say anything?
Please form a line.
Yes. Please approach the podium, state your name and town that you're representing.
Yeah, Jamie Fitzpatrick from Newton.
Yep.
I really just had one comment that I wanted to make. Also make that on the school board, and that is the staff support contract. It's for $159,000 for the first year and roughly 95-ish. I can't really read that for the next 2 years. It's very important that we pass that as a district. We have a very hard time covering our needs in the school district presently. Worked very hard with the negotiating committee from the collective bargaining agreement. And this is something that really is going to be important for the schools, for the people that are in now, in order to be able to hire people to get in, to be able to get the intervention programs that we've been talking about, to be able to staff those, to be able to impact those. Both sides gave a lot to make this work. Both of them worked very hard to get the approval at the different boards, and now it has to go to the community. And I just wanted to speak up in favor of this for the community so that this goes into the election and deliberative will get support for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Cheryl.
I have some questions. I don't know if I should go and speak at the podium or speak from here.
Are they directly related to the presentation?
Yes,
Yes, you can speak from here.
okay. Just because it appears we have one member of the public here, that may be because of the cold weather we're experiencing or issues with COVID-19. So I just had some questions about some of the slides just for clarification.
Can I ask a question? Are these the BudCom slides? Why are we answering questions about the slides that you guys developed? This is a public hearing on the budget, not the slides. And if you, as a committee, develop those slides, if you have questions, Cheryl, ask the chair after the meeting. But the purpose of this hearing is to hear what the public wants to say about the budget and the proposed. You've had your meeting already to do that. I would just feel more comfortable if you just talk to Jim after and Matt and ask them the questions, because these slides were developed by the budget committee at a previous meeting. And the purpose of this meeting is to have a hearing on the warrant articles, not to talk about the slides.
It's on the operating budget. So let me just clarify. The chairperson who presented tonight was unable to attend our last meeting where some things were discussed. And some of the things that the committee discussed were not clarified tonight. So I just wanted to clarify. For example, how is the default budget arrived upon? What is the legal requirements of how the default budget is arrived at?
The default budget how the default budget is created has been stated several times throughout the whole budget process. And basically it's the same, but the default is the same budget as last year, less any one-off items and any unexpected expenses that fall into the category of rebuilding repairs or something like that. So
Okay.
your default budget is trimmed down, is your last year's budget trimmed down by everything that was not in an anticipated expense.
Okay. Another, the unexpended fund balance being returned to the taxpayers. Can that be explained how that's returned to the taxpayers?
I'll explain that. Okay, so basically the unexpended fund balance, what that is it's essentially the net income of the school district, and the school board can retain only up to 2.5% of that balance at the end of the year. And how it gets returned back to the taxpayers, it doesn't actually we don't actually cut a check back to the taxpayers. Actually, what we end up doing is reducing the tax rate by the amount of that surplus. We're not taxing the taxpayers for that amount. So it's essentially like we're taxing for a net income loss.
Okay, can I just say, point of order, please. This is not the purpose of this hearing. The purpose of this hearing is to have public input on the warrant articles. If the budget committee would like to have a meeting and ask Mr. Angel questions about the information in the slides, we will schedule another meeting to do that. But I want to be clear that I'm not comfortable with what we're doing right now because it's not the intent of the meeting and it's not the way that the meeting was posted or noticed. So I'm just calling, I'm not comfortable with this. So Mr. Angel can explain, he has explained the default budget process during the budget presentation. And all of that information is in the slides that were presented to the community. The purpose of this evening, the public hearing for this meeting has concluded. There's no public present. If the BudCom would like to have a separate meeting, I asked the chair schedule a separate meeting.
As the chair, I provided an agenda, and in that agenda, it states that there is a public comment and a committee comment. I'm going to honor the committee comment, just as I did the public comment. We will proceed with Ms.
Okay.
Gannon's
Thank
question.
you very much. I'm stepping on.
Thank you very much.
I mean, if you would like me to go to the podium, I would be
I think that's probably.
more than
better
happy to
idea.
go to the
Yeah, I
podium.
think you should probably do it.
Because I am a member of the,
Public?
I'm a voting member.
and committee.
I live in Kingston, so I will do that then. Thank you. Cheryl Gannon from Kingston.
Yes.
Question, so, I mean, it was my understanding that at a public hearing, the public is also able to ask questions about the budget, things that have been presented, if they feel that they don't understand them. That's always in the past.
Excuse me. I know exactly what you're saying. I gave you the opportunity to speak from your seat, and because of somebody else attending the meeting remotely, didn't appreciate that you were up here and not down there is their issue. It's not ours. You don't owe us an explanation.
Okay,
Please proceed with your questions.
thank you. Where does the money in the reserve accounts come from?
In the reserve accounts? Okay,
Yeah.
hold on a second. I'm gonna pull open the presentation really quick. Because there's different pools of money here. Okay, the first one, the Special Education Expendable Trust Fund, and the second one, actually the first three, Special Education Expendable Trust Fund, this is on slide 8, the Capital Improvement Capital Reserve Fund, and the Unanticipated Educational Expenses Capital Reserve Fund. These historically have been funded through surplus fund balance of prior years. They have not been, you haven't been taxed directly. The Facility Use Revolving Fund, these are facility rental fees that the district is collecting, and under the warrant article that authorized this fund, those revenues are segregated in a separate fund, and they can only be used for a specific purpose. And that purpose is for facility improvement and repairs, and also for some technology purchases. The final one, which is a contingency fund, there's no actual fund for this. What it is it's a segregation of fund balance, and it is the amount of surplus funds at year end, or the unanticipated, I'm sorry, it is the unexpended fund balance at year end that the school board votes to retain. This is the 2.5% contingency fund that they retain. And what that is it's an amount that's calculated of the net assessments of that's, if you take the total of the amount that's being taxed to the taxpayers, there's two portions of it. There's the state share, and then there's the local share. And so it's 2.5% of the local share of the real estate taxes. That amount can be reserved and not returned back to the taxpayers. It can only be used for emergency purchases, and it strongly can only be used for emergency purposes. It's a high bar where we can only spend the money if we have approval from the school board, the budget committee, the New Hampshire Department of Education, and the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration.
Thank
Okay.
you. And then on the unanticipated utility costs expendable fund, is that because if we had unexpended utility costs, they could not be taken out of any one of these other reserve funds that already exist?
Which warrant article is that?
It was 6. That would be
Six.
slide.
Okay.
I have
So,
questions.
This is the first time I'm seeing these, by the way.
okay. So the idea behind the unanticipated utility cost expendable trust fund is it's like a budget smoothing and it's attempting to smooth out the tax rate as well. So what we've done with the budget is try to set a limit of how much money we're going to spend for utility costs, such as heating oil and electricity. And if the actual amount for that cost comes in what we anticipated for budgeting, then I'm going to go and pull it from this fund. Or I'm going to ask the school board to expend from this fund, okay? If, however, we come in with utility rates as what we budgeted, then we're not going to pull from this fund, and it rolls over to the following year. And then the following year, I can also estimate a lower number for utility costs. And that, in theory, is going to make the budget flat because it's not going to have spikes and valleys because of the prices of utilities. And then also it's not going to impact the tax rate with those spikes and valleys. Okay.
Thank you. And article number 7, about student device revolving fund.
So this is more like an insurance program. Okay. So basically right now the students are paying, or I'm sorry, the parents are paying for actual damages for on their Chromebooks. So say, for example, a student smashes a screen, they may pay like $100 to replace the screen. And I could be totally wrong with my numbers. I'm just using this as an example, okay? Under this program, a parent who wants to participate in the program, they have a choice. They can either pay for actual damages, or they can pay a fee, an annual fee for protection of that Chromebook. So say, for example, we charge them $18 for that protection. Then that $18 is segregated, can't be used for any other purpose other than to let me get the actual purpose here. It's for supporting, maintaining, and replacing student electronic devices. So say, for example, the student smashes the screen. It's going to cost $100 to do it, but the parent paid into the fund for $18. So the parent is only out $18. Okay. And what this is doing is it's spreading the risk of the damage of all the that occurs throughout the year over the participants who are participating in the program. Okay.
Thank you. Let's see, there's one more. So those two are the only new reserve funds that are being proposed?
Yes,
The others are just adding money to existing funds?
that's correct.
Thank you. That was very valuable information. I appreciate it.
So if
Thank you.
I have questions, do I have to go down there?
Yes,
Related to the warrant articles?
Any of the committee members have questions, please go down to the podium so we can avoid the situation we just had. Thank you again, Cheryl.
So I have to state my name.
Yes, please.
Vanessa Matias from Kingston. So for Article 6, the unanticipated utility costs, Matt, is this something that, let's say our utility costs this year were over what you budgeted for and we depleted this fund, how do these funds get repeated, or like, how does it?
Replenished,
Huh?
replenished.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so one of the things that I'd like to do is make sure that when I'm presenting this replenishment warrant article in the future,
Yeah.
is to make sure it's tied to some sort of analysis, okay? So say, for example, we depleted the fund, I would come to the school board and say, okay, when we're doing the warrant article, I need to put in another $75,000, okay? Where the operating budget only goes up to where we think it's going to be, and then the upper portion is going to be the risk. Okay.
Okay.
So that would be the process.
Okay. So this fund would be created and then every year it would just be replenished as needed.
Yes, replenished as needed.
So it's not like you have to go back to the warrant articles and presume a new one. It
That's
would-
right.
Okay. And then for Article 7, so the buy-in, the example that you gave for like a buy-in protection for the parents, that's not something that's existing right now in our district, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And then do you know, I'm just curious, and this may be off base, but do you know what you're expected to be within this fund? Like what your ideal amount would be for this fund?
I do not.
Okay.
Okay. And that program is being developed right now. You have to understand that we're trying to design this program after the one that's at Timber Lane right now.
Okay.
And it's my understanding that that program is very successful there, and we would like to bring it here. So, and really, there's two parts to it. Okay. The first one is to try to allow the parents to help spread the cost of the risk. Okay. And then the second part is to make sure that there's no spikes and valleys in our budget related to damages related to the Chromebooks.
So currently, if a student damages a Chromebook, is the parent liable for the full repair or is the district liable for the full repair?
It really depends. If the student damages it, it's my understanding that the parents are liable to it.
Okay. Okay. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Anyone else with questions? No? All right. So we'll call that the end of the public comment. And so based upon that experience, I'm going to go with there are no committee comments, correct? All right. So that brings us to the next meeting, which is going to be January 20th at 7 p.m. at the high school library. That is where we're going to vote for the whether we recommend the budget or not. And then we're also going to cover the warrant articles that Matthew provided for us this evening and submit those details during the first deliberative. And that wraps up the evening.
Motion to adjourn.
A second.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Vote.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Cheryl?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
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 Oh, we meant they have to vote on the warrants at the next meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
We're voting.
Yes or no for?
Christine?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Unanimous.
I'm a yes.
Moira?
Yes.
Oh, God, more.
Been so quiet. We forgot about
Sorry.
it.
I know that doesn't usually happen.
Yep. Sorry about that, Maura.
Jim, thank you for, or Jamie, thank you for coming too.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie.
Okay.
All right, that's it, folks. Have a good evening.